Born in Detroit, Hamilton Evans James grew up in Lincoln Center, Massachusetts, and came to Choate in the fourth form. His father had attended Andover, but his maternal grandfather, a prominent doctor in New Haven, was convinced that nearby Choate had much to offer him. Hamilton, known as Tony, hit the ground running. Director of Studies Bill Sweeney wrote, "He has the ability to absorb difficult material readily, and this leaves him time for exploration into many worlds. The electronic field particularly interests him, and it's fascinating to watch him figure out some incredibly complicated gadget. He is at the same time modest, unassuming, and a delightful fellow." Tony played JV soccer, was a member of the league all-star hockey team. Hockey coach Jerry Packett noted, and I quote, unofficial team captain, Tony was one of the most valuable members of the Remsen Club squad, also known as the Hatchet Men. He was also vice president of the electronics and math clubs, and as a sixth former was chairman of the tutoring committee, which assisted underformers who were having academic difficulties. He also had a senior project as a tutor in the Wallingford school system. He earned the sixth form prize for excellence in science, a special award in mathematics, and induction into the Cum Laude Society. According to classmate Ken Bartels, and I quote, "Tony James was a star, a gifted athlete, a top student, a natural and effortless leader," Ken adds. He goes on to say, "Tony's extraordinary career has been all about making the call, about industries, about people, about world events, and usually making that call with less than perfect information. Tony's uncanny ability to make the right call time after time stems in part from the experience we all had as young men at Choate," end of quote. Tony graduated magna cum laude from Harvard University in 1973 as a John Harvard Scholar. He earned an MBA with high distinction from the Harvard Business School and graduated as a Baker Scholar in 1975. He then joined investment bank Donaldson, Lufkin, and Jenrette, where he spent the next 25 years. He became head of DLJ's Global Mergers and Acquisition Group in 1982, founded DLJ Merchant Banking, Inc. in 1985, and was named chairman of the banking group in 1995. After the acquisition of Donaldson, Lufkin, and Jenrette by Credit Suisse First Boston in 2000, Tony became the chairman of Global Investment Banking and Private Equity for Credit Suisse First Boston and was a member of the executive board. In 2002, Tony joined the Blackstone Group, one of the world's largest private equity investment firms. With over 1,400 employees worldwide in offices in New York, London, Paris, Dusseldorf, Tokyo, Sydney, Hong Kong, Beijing, Shanghai, Mumbai, Dubai, Blackstone is an alternative asset management and financial services company that specializes in private equity, real estate, and credit and marketable alternative investment strategies, as well as financial advisory services. The firm went public in 2007 and now manages $92 billion in investments. Tony, as you've heard from Woody, is president and chief operating officer of Blackstone. He's also a member of Blackstone's management and executive committees and sits on each of the firm's investment committees. In 2002, Tony also joined the Choate Rosemary Hall Board of Trustees. Fellow trustee Tom Wall, class of '76, recalls, "I've worked on Wall Street for the last 28 years and have run into an awful lot of people over the years, but have never worked with anyone who was more knowledgeable, insightful, and savvy than Tony. Other boards have sought him. He has served as vice chairman of the Kennedy Center Corporate Fund Board, trustee of the Metropolitan Museum of Art, chairman emeritus of the Board of Trustees of the American Ballet Theater, as well as vice chairman of Trout Unlimited's Cold Water Conservation Fund, trustee of Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution, and a trustee of the Wildlife Conservation Society. He's also a former member of the President's Export Council and a subcommittee on technology and competitiveness. A frequent panelist on private capital symposiums, Tony is often asked to place his bets on investments for the long and short terms. We are grateful today that Tony's investment in Choate Rosemary Hall as an institution has been for the long term. For his commitment to operational excellence in the world of finance, for his ability to make the call, and for his long-term commitment to his alma mater, we are proud to present the 2011 Choate Rosemary Hall Alumni Award to
Thanks, Ed. Well, I'm a putsy businessman, and I think we owe a great vote of thanks to Terry for taking on the issues she does that makes society better for all of us. Well, Choate's very different today when I was here, and I have to confess, when I was here, it wasn't a very likable place. I hope that's changed. But just to kind of dial the clock back a little, first of all, of course, it was all male. We had 6 full days of classes every week. We had 7 days a week, every day, a full religious chapel service. We had all meals were required. At each meal you sat in an assigned seat and an assigned table. That seat rotated 2 over every day, so you got to sit next to the master more often than you wanted. You were required to wear a coat and tie to every meal, every class, every chapel service, to study hall. Study hall was required after dinner. You got out of study hall at 9 o'clock. It was lights out, no exceptions, at 9:40. We had a weekly inspection of our rooms. The master would open your drawers to make sure your things were folded appropriately inside the drawers. You had to write a letter to your parents each week, Sunday night. That letter was to be left unsealed so the master could read the letter to make sure you weren't just sending an empty piece of paper. But the worst of all was the fact that the seniors were in the dorms and they had absolute authority over the underclassmen. So when I arrived at the 4th form year, it was quite a shock. It was quite a hostile environment for a kid from a small town. I promptly decided to get badly sick for 2 weeks with mononucleosis. So I missed all the soccer tryouts, which I came to play soccer here, and I never caught up to the getting on the team thing. Although I did play at varsity at Harvard and went to the NCAA Final Four 3 times, but I couldn't make the Choate team. So by the time I got out of the hospital my 4th form year, not only had I missed all the soccer tryouts, I was two weeks behind on all my classes, and I had no friends. I also didn't know the routine, and there was no one around to tell me what it was. So I found myself being late to things as I scrambled to try to figure out what was what and where was what. And in those days, if you were late 3 times, even 1 minute late, you got 5 hours of hard labor for every 3 latenesses. So as hard as I worked to work off the hours, I kept getting more and more hours. I also got a D in English, which was not exactly the way to start. And finally, I started getting stomach aches every day, and it was really a tough year, shall we say. But I got 3 amazing gifts out of that year from Choate. First of all, I learned that failures are not fatal. And in life, you learn much more from your failures than you do from your victories. Victories have no teaching value. In fact, if you don't try and fail at things, you will not live up to your potential. Every time you fail, there's a lesson, and don't waste it, because it's painful. And everyone will go through really bad patches in their life. That's inevitable. And don't get overwhelmed. Tackle things 1 step at a time. Do only what you can, but don't give up. How you deal with adversity will determine the course of your lives. So that was the first lesson. Now, after the first year, the rest of Choate was pretty easy, I thought, as it turned out. But strangely, the best times I had at Choate were also that fourth form year. I remember, for example, we had a 2-day paperclip war with the dorm next door. So we were buying all the paper clips in the school, all the elastic bands in the school, and shooting them at each other. After 2 days of that, our fingers were raw, we had welts all over our faces, and there were piles of paper clips under every window. It was exuberant fun, and there was kind of almost an ecstasy in the freedom and the release from the hostile environment in which we live day to day, and it really helped cope with that. So the next lesson is don't be a victim. Don't think like a victim. Don't get that destructive mindset. And having fun is an antidote to that. It's a way of asserting control over your lives when you don't otherwise have it. And there is always fun to be found. All you have to do is find it, and if you can't find it, create your own. So that was my second lesson. I was also lucky fourth form year to have an amazing roommate. He was totally creative. He would learn about electricity and physics and come back and say, you know, Tony, radiators are wires, and speakers and microphones work the same way. So he'd have an idea that we'd sneak into our dorm mates' rooms and run another wire out the window, connect their speakers like microphones with a radiator, and be able to bug their rooms with our own stereos. Similarly, he came back out of chemistry class one day and said, you know, hydrogen and oxygen make water. Why don't we plug some plugs from the wall into a tub of water, separate the hydrogen and oxygen, and make some mini bombs? Well, we did that, and they really worked. So, this roommate of mine had an uncanny ability to take what you learned in the classroom and find something useful and interesting way to apply it. And I finally figured out, you're not just learning random facts because they're there and someone wants to teach you. This is stuff you can use. And he taught me to think differently. And he showed me that the brain is an amazing tool and knowledge is its fuel. That creativity really is learning something in one context and applying it to a completely different one. You don't have to create it out of whole cloth. Now, everyone in this room has a superior brain, or you wouldn't be here. But it's striking how few people ever learn to learn the full potential of their brains. And this is a skill you can learn just as I learned it. Virtually all of you are headed towards college. And I will say this, I bet every single one of you has a very painful adjustment period in college. I think we all do, and we all did. And you will make mistakes, but don't lose heart. Mistakes aren't fatal. You will also find moments of exuberance. Seize them, savor them. They are important. And finally, you'll have the opportunity to learn, yes, in the classroom, but more particularly outside of the classroom. Use it. Make your brain a weapon. Thank you.